reporting form that you're going to be using. Across the districts, we share what our kids look like on Fountas Pinnell in the fall and in the spring. So kind of a pre and a post, okay? And it's really actually a nice collection. It's going to tell you the level, you know, fiction, nonfiction, your accuracy rates, and your comprehension rubric will be there, your self-correction, your fluency, and then you'll, the last column is about writing. However, most times we don't record the writing. Here would be an example of a real sheet from a teacher. And obviously I've covered up the names, but I just kind of want to show you how these tools work together. In the fall, I'm looking, this is a second grade classroom, and so that first chart said that JK is the at level in the fall, okay? And the reason I have the data on here is because we were doing longitudinal data, and we wanted to make sure that we were looking at the levels for Common Core. So what I've done here is I've looked at each of their levels, and I kind of checked their accuracy and their comprehension. And the reason this is on top is because it's like way, way important. And I kind of just looked for, first of all, did the teacher record the instructional level? Because that's what the district should be asking you for, is the instructional level. So as I checked these, I could see here, this student read Bedtime for Nick. It's a G. Can you take your sheet? Can you take your sheet? You see the top is for levels A through K. The bottom is for levels L through Z. They're different. This child is a G. 96% accuracy, and 6 out of 7 correct. What level is that? It's an independent level. It's an independent level. And at first sight, I go, oh my gosh, you know, we're looking for instructional. But look at the great thing. The teacher said on the side here, she did go up. She said too many errors at H. So she said that accuracy was an issue. So, and here's the same thing. It looks like it's independent. But anyway, as we look at this then, I look at each of these levels in comparison to our fall target. And on the side, I just say above, at, you know, and I get out of the 20 kids, 11, 55% were above in this classroom, 10% at, and 35% below. So this is this classroom. Then I kind of wanted to see, and I'm sorry, this kind of got cut off. I wanted to see at the grade level how this classroom compared. At the grade level, 49% were above, 23% at, a big percentage at, and then 37% low. 27% low. So that gives me two pieces of information, and from an RTI standpoint, I would be looking, how can I combine with the teacher across the hall that we could give maybe a little extra attention to these ats so they don't fall to belows, and maybe we do it collectively. But this would then be how those first resources are going to help you to look at your class, okay? So the top is the A through K, and the bottom is the L through Z, okay? Another tool, and you do have this, is this worksheet. It's called an assessment summary form. And on yours, you're going to be able to see the categories at the top a lot easier than you can see on the slide here. But again, you're going to, this is like the worksheet to compile all the information on the different selections that one kid reads. So you're going to put the title in. System 1 or 2 just means System 1 is the younger, is that the box?
Green is younger and blue is older.
Okay, so System 2 would be the blue box. And you're going to write if it's fiction or nonfiction, the level, the percent accurate, the percent correct for comprehension, and then you see, oh, independent level or instructional level. You're going to be able to record self-corrections, fluency, rate, and then there's the column about writing. Okay? This is was really important for me because it kept the data together on each student. So this is a former student that I had. Let's again take this sheet and let's just check if I'm accurate here. Okay, so this child read level G, bubbles, had 97% accuracy and 6 out of 7 correct in comprehension. What level is that child? Independent. Okay. Sleepovers, level H, 95% accurate, 6 out of 7 correct. What level? Independent. Oh my, interesting. 2 independents. Which is the real independent? It's always the highest. Whichever one is the highest is one that you're going to record as that child's true independent level. Okay? H. Okay? All about koalas. Now, you see how we went, the child chose sometimes fiction, nonfiction. Here is nonfiction again. 92% accurate at I, 5 out of 7 correct. What level is it? Instructional. Kept on going. Level J, 91% accurate, 6 out of 7 correct. Instructional. We got 2 instructional levels. Same rule. What is the instructional level for this child? J. Yep, the highest. Okay? And then I tried the J in nonfiction, and I didn't even record it here, but and this is old, but I did record the 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7 automatically makes it too hard. Okay. Why would I keep on, especially here? You know, I know the highest instructional level is the child's true instructional level. Why would I keep on at this point when I did get it? Excuse me, this was independent level. Why would I keep on after doing this instructional level to another one? Sometimes kids have a range of instructional level. And that becomes important to know so that I know how I can put my groups together.
Well, and wouldn't you have gone up anyway because you hadn't got to hard yet?
Well, I hadn't gotten to hard is
so you
correct.
Really accomplished 2 things with.
Well, what happens is, as you're trying to find how big that instructional level is, you bump into hard. Yeah.
But you need all 3
to truly know your reader.
Especially when kids are very young, and especially if they're struggling. I would be finding all 3 levels. Because that's tight monitoring so that the teaching can be tight and nobody falls through the cracks.
And if somebody tells you you don't have to, it's because they're just looking at it as a reporting tool because all you record is the instructional, but you really do need it for instruction.
So, and that's what we're going to find out as we go on here. So, we are going to now take a real child and we're going to start, actually you have a green copy of Wholesome's reading. As if we were going to fill this out, we're going to try and find, we're going to try and find the Wholesome's independent level, instructional level, and the too hard level. Okay.
Okay.
And Anna's new glasses at level left.
So we're just following with marks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify. So we're just following the markings of what's been already recorded,
Right.
but listening to what it sounds like.
Everybody get that? You don't have to do the coding. It's already done for you. Okay?
Can I just have a show of hands? How many people have had lots of practice in like the coding part?
Oh. I do my own.
No!
How many people feel like maybe you could use just a little more refreshment on the coding? Just a few? Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, Debbie, because a lot of people will say, well, I understand mine. But if we're going to collaborate, we want to be able to look at each other's and have standard coding.
Okay.
So just a...
It's a goal, but
It's
we're
a
happy
goal.
that you are running records.
You want to know how many people use their own little codes?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, we were just saying at this table.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very common.
Sorry.
Anna
No, that's good.
had a new red backpack and new shoes. We have one more thing to do, said her mom. You may need to get some glasses. I don't need glasses, said Anna. You may need glasses to help you read, said her mom. Do you want to read at school? I want to read, said Anna. I love books, but I don't want glasses. Anna went to the doctor. You do need glasses, said the doctor. Anna looked at the glasses. I don't like these glasses, she said. Look at the purple glasses, said Rob. Anna put on the purple glasses. Anna put on some red glasses. I like red and
Her reading of this text at 98% accuracy indicates that level F is an independent reading level for Colson. She made only 4 errors. Nevertheless, this text did present some opportunities for problem solving. We can see from her record of reading that she works to self-correct, sometimes rereading to search for more information. Many of her substitutions show that she is using meaning and language structure and checking on her reading using visual information. For example, she attempted to read the word walked by first saying walk, then work, then went. All of these errors indicate her use of visual information along with meaning. Finally, after reading on to the end of the sentence, she returned to the word and read the phrase correctly. This behavior provides evidence that Colson is using all sources of information in a flexible way.
Glasses on at school, said Mom. Anna said, "Hear her, Mom." What went to school, walked to school. Anna looked at her new teacher. She opened her backpack and put on her new glasses. I'm Mrs. Bill, the teacher said. I am your new teacher. We have the same glasses. Anna smiled. Yes, these are great glasses.
What was Anna's problem?
She didn't want glasses. She found a red glasses and she liked it. And then when
Okay, we're going to skip ahead to the
And
next.
beyond the
Whoops.
text,
the next one that she reads to her.
And maybe what we want to do, if I could just interject, is to
Please do.
take one moment of a table talk, just looking at the analysis piece of fluency. Where would she fall on this scoring grid? And talk at your tables for just one moment about that book with Anna's glasses. What do we know about Colson just from that one reading? Okay, go ahead and do that.
She also didn't give up to on the went walk one. She
I don't want it. Everybody, I think we'll stop you there. We had a couple people notice that she's got the student record. She started with Anna's glasses at the top. She's recording, trying to find all 3 levels. I heard lots of good conversation about what Anna's doing, but we had a question on what's MSV. And it's meaning, syntax, and visual. And that's where, when we're analyzing what a child's doing while they're reading, that's how we figure out what to do next and how to prompt them while they are reading. And that's beyond the scope of what we're going to do today. So in every Fountas Pinnell kit, there is this DVD, and you can go through a tutorial. That's what you want to do when you get home from school, I know. But it really does lead you. But if you still have trouble, we'd be happy to sit down with you and give you a crash course on MSB. I know Shane's really good at it because he was in my class. And so were you, weren't you? I thought I recognized you. We did running records in a class that I taught out at UND. So good, yeah.
And what Kim's referring to on this DVD, there's actually a whole link that's called Meaning, Syntax, Visual, and
It's
that
a tutorial.
it has all of the video footage of what it would look like, sound like, and yeah. So
It really is a great tool. Okay, so we're going to move on. So we're going to pink. So the teacher had talked about her fluency. She gave her a 1, I believe. She had comprehension. She gave her 6 out of 7, I think it was. All right, so she's moving on to the next story.
Now observe Colson reading bubbles, level G.
Look at all the bubbles. Some bubbles are big and some are little. All those bubbles are made with soap and water. They are called soap bubbles. Soap bubbles are great. They are very thin and they have lots of color, just like a rainbow.
Colson's reading of bubbles indicates that G is probably a good level for instruction, although she will need some very specific instruction on phrasing and fluency. Although the text is more challenging than the previous level, Colson again demonstrates problem solving against a backdrop of accurate reading, 93% of the words. When she encountered some unfamiliar words, she made a tense, indicating that even on more challenging texts, Colson is actively working to make meaning. Analysis of her errors shows that, again, she is using meaning, language structure, and visual information in an orchestrated way. Her fluency rating for this reading was 1, indicating that she was reading in primarily 2-word phrases with some 3-word phrases, without much stress on words or intonation. This behavior indicates the need for some specific instruction, because at 93% accuracy, her reading should be more fluent.
Bubbling air into a straw. The air is going into the girl milk to make bubbles. Here is an
Enormous.
enormous bubble. This bubble is as long.
Okay, we're going to stop her there. Just pause it for a minute here. If you look at, what's nice about the Fountas Pinnell pre-printed text is that they help us with the accuracy rate. So she had 11 errors. So she circled the 10 to 11. I think it's on the third page. Fourth page. So we know she's at 93%. So if you use your chart, what is wholesome on this text? Okay, so she's found the instructional level and she wrote it on the little chart, but she's going to keep going. She wants to find out what wholesome will do on a hard text.
Okay, so she's 93% accuracy.
Yeah,
You don't
but
know
she
the
didn't-
comprehension yet.
Oh, well, we're not going to actually look, are
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not, but just to make sure that you always,
Yes, right.
when you're determining a level, it's accuracy and comprehension.
Yep. So the next page, she already did it for us. She had 5 out of 7. Yeah. I'm sorry, I did jump ahead. I forgot to teach it. Yeah, it's 2 things, accuracy and comprehension.
And then included, just for your own reference, is what a writing sample would look like with this if you choose to do this. I always tell teachers that if you have a child that's a puzzle for you, this writing piece could be the extra piece that helps you kind of uncover some things about that child that you don't know. And this does not have to be as part of your work with them. You can send them back to their desk to do this and say, write about what you know about that story. And that can be an independent piece. It doesn't have to be a part of your assessment conference time. So it certainly can give you some great information about them as readers by looking at their writing.
Okay, so we're going to move on to your blue sheet. This is Colson reading The Sleepover Party.
And I think you know what's coming, right, with what we're going to listen to?
So we're not going to watch all of it.
Because it can be hard to listen to a hard read for a student for a length of time. So we'll start it to listen to, and think about what characteristics does she have that you would know as a person doing the assessment that it's too hard. Okay, so be thinking about that.
Say, Kim, as you're finding this, can I just say something?
Please.
Yeah. On your sheet, on that worksheet that you have, that you're filling out, as you go across, the second to the last column says rate, and inside your boxes,
And wanted to take us right.
you're going to have a calculator in there that you're going to put, because you have to time this, you're going to put the starting time, the ending time, and then you'll see how many minutes the child was reading, and it's going to calculate the rate for you. And it calculates self-corrections too, doesn't it?
You have to input how many. And if you aren't familiar with how that works, they show you on the DVD. Honestly, the DVD is really great. I watched it because I didn't have the training, so I just popped it in at home and I taught myself.
And again, if you need help,
Yes.
You're going to read to find out what happened.
The sleepover party. June
Should I do it?
excellent because he was going to a sleepover party, but he was also a little worried. He had now stay all night.
It will take only a few minutes of listening to Coulsom's reading of the sleepover party to realize that this text is too hard for her. Her reading was only about 86% accurate, indicating that the book is too difficult for the reader. On this text, some of her errors do not make sense. When she encounters an unfamiliar word, she makes an attempt using visual information. For example, she attempted excited by sounding it out, but left her attempt without working on it. For never, she substituted now and near, neither of which made sense, and she did not continue to work on the words. At times, the processing really broke down, and Coulsom would simply say strings of words. A very significant indication of the processing is that Coulsom made only 2 self-corrections. Nevertheless, it is also significant that Coulsom continued to work actively at her reading.
One of the things that when we were just starting it, and you may have caught this, is when you're introducing any book, do you all know that the intro is written for you on the front of the book, so that's how you set up the book? And so you heard that teacher say exactly what's written there, and that's the prompt that you give the kids for any book. The other piece is that, I mentioned this at New Teacher Workshop, it has in the front the number of errors. So in this one, it's 31. If you are just mentally kind of, oh goodness, they're erring all over, you know, and if you are thinking that you are in that ballpark of 31, you would instantly know that this is too hard and to just abandon that book. So that's just kind of, as you do more running records, you get quicker and to know that, and to, but those are just some tips on the book.
But she did learn some really good things from her.
Mm-hmm.
If you look, she went ahead and circled the 31 or more, so below 90%. So you look on your charts, and you know, even without looking at the comprehension, that it's hard. She gave her a 0 for fluency. Interestingly, though, she did ask her all the questions.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, but I like that they. What do you think you learned about her more than anything? Yeah, perseverance. That little girl is working hard.
So when you look at the summary, I love the Coulsom kind of kids because look at, in 3 reads, you got 3 different levels.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? What is something consistent for instruction? Looking at the 3 reads that you can just see off of this sheet. Fluency is an issue at every level, even the independent level. You expect it to be maybe a little bit better, but obviously fluency is a strong issue there.
Especially at the 93%. At 93%, we expect a fluent reader.
Mm-hmm. And 98% was a 1 also.
Yeah, so I like how they said at her instructional level that they would need some focus on fluency.
So would you still bump up then, you think? Still, I mean, well, in a case like you had 2 independent and 1 fluency is poorer than the other, do you still go to that high level, or do you go back down to the better fluency and keep her at that level?
Oh, that's a really good question. But at 90, what is she, 93 and a 1, with attention to fluency, G could be her instructional level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For her independent practice, however, you have to go down to where she's got the fluency, and it may be way down.
Yep.
But that's what you would do for independence.
So there lies the reason. That's a great question. To know the range of your reader, instructionally, independently, what's too hard, because in all throughout your day, as you create their variety of reading experiences, you would have books to support fluency, and they would be a different level than what you're using instructionally. Yeah. So that's a great question.
So
that was a good one.
Yeah. So this was the last tool that we talked about, and actually there's a backside to it. Okay. The backside to it would then be if you wanted to collect your whole class in terms of 3 levels.
Oh, I think we have a question over here. You
Yes.
guys are saying which is the true instructional?
Independent level for fluency is only one. We have to be lower than.
Well, you're not going to hold her back for instructional, but in her box, her independence, not only are they going to be F or lower, because you want to guarantee that fluency is going to improve, right?
Right. The level is strictly on this resource where you're looking at word accuracy and comprehension. That's how they determine. But you'll see secondary instructional issues like fluency will come up. Yeah.
So you wouldn't change what you read on your sheet.
Okay.
But you definitely consider fluency in your instruction.
Yeah. So the next part that we're going to is instruction. Okay? And obviously, we're all asking this essential question: how do we help these kids move faster? Okay? So there's really two different levels. We know that cognitive development at the zone of actual development, it's really about the kid's independent level, okay? What they can know and do alone, okay? And you see actually the accuracies for the two different levels, and these are accuracies with comprehension that is either excellent or satisfactory, okay? So that always the word accuracy and the comprehension go together, okay? So this is one level that is really important to attend to. This level, I'm sure you recognize, it's the zone of proximal development, okay? And the zone of proximal development is the level, the maximum level of development that a child can reach with assistance, okay? So that's the instructional level. These are terms that all of you know. And they all come from Vygotsky, okay? And again, as we look, the accuracies are a little bit lower and with adequate comprehension, or limited, excuse me, comprehension here. So both the child's independent and instructional level are key for you in accelerating their growth in different ways, though, okay? So when you look up Vygotsky, my gosh, just as a review, I love this one. He says development is primarily driven by language, how we talk, how teachers talk, how kids talk, social context, and adult guidance. And there you see some of the key words of zone of proximal development. Social context, constructivism, all of that comes from this Russian psychologist. Here, I love this, how the social interaction is where it starts with that adult guidance, the peer collaborative or collaboration instructor, and it starts here. You know what the potential skill range is, but you're zoning in on that zone of proximal development to eventually address what each of these individual students need. Learning is cognitive development through social interaction. All of these terms are really important, but this would be my favorite, where he talks about at the very end here, language plays a central role in mental development. Okay, so in summary, what we learn is the importance of language in promoting literacy, the need to work in these zones, and then the role of instruction as it develops self-regulated learners. So here is teaching and learning, right? Okay. Teacher says, can you read this in the back?
You might want to read it out loud.
Teacher says, quick makes sense, but does that word look like quick? Read it again and think of the word that would make sense that starts with F. The kid go, so that is the teacher's language, and here the next day, here is the student saying quick, but remembering what the teacher had said before, goes back to use the strategy she talked about and of using the first letter and what makes sense. Okay, so all of us have internal voices, right? Mm-hmm. Like I can still remember what my dad said about driving in North Dakota in the wintertime and how much gas you should have. Where did we get those internal voices? It started with an external voice, okay? And that's what we are, the language that we use, and we repeat and repeat and repeat. Verbatim goes in that child's head, okay? So language goes from external to internal. It goes from what the child was able to accomplish with assistance yesterday becomes the independent level today, moving that child to a higher level of intellectual development. So, good teacher, he's trying to think here, how can I assist this child as I listen to them in their problem solving? Well, what she's remembering is, Vygotsky says, instruction leads development. So how you respond, if you're taking them to the next level with your language, with your demonstration, with your engagement, oh my gosh, you are leading their development. We cannot overestimate the role of the adult in this teaching and learning. You lead them, and your language is huge. So it starts with your modeling, your demonstrating, your engaging, and that transfers then to their knowledge, their skills, and their strategy. How? It's your language. Your language becomes their language. So if a child is reading along and says, my mom picked up a birthday blank for the party, and the child can't get the word cake, you wouldn't say, well, it rhymes with take, would you? That's kind of like a really irrelevant, meaningless clue to the meaning of that sentence, to the visual. It is syntactically it's on, but we want to make sure that your language, you're careful with your language, and you kind of are intentful. You have your language planned out to ensure that you are, again, pulling these kids to the higher developmental level. You have clipped, you can look at this now, some resources that I think are invaluable. Particularly the Prompting Basics from Mari Clay and the Prompting Guide by Reading Levels. Kim, do you want to talk about these?
I would a little bit. The prompting, though, has to come after your understanding of what the child is doing while they're reading. So you really do have to know the MS and the V. Doesn't mean you have to have analyzed everything the child's ever read. But if you're pulling up and having a reading conference with the child, that's when you know what are they doing while they're reading. And running record, of course, is the best way to do that. So whatever they're not doing, what they're neglecting is what you want to prompt. So if you have a child whose substitutions have no visual similarity, you want a prompt that's going to get them looking at visuals. So that's why that MSV on your running records becomes important. There's a like 5-page handout, Prompting Basics from Mari Clay, and she groups the prompts into your purpose. You know, if you want the child to, they know something and they're not using it. You know, using something the child knows would be a good to draw a prompt from that section. If they are neglecting visual, then you would find, I'm looking for the visual one. And then, of course, there's the general prompts. Try that again. If you want them to make sure it makes sense, does that make sense? Just prompts for whatever they're neglecting. Then there's a prompting guide by level, just to give you kind of a guide. You know, what is it we're looking for when kids are reading levels A to C? That's the desired behavior, your action in the middle, and then the prompt that you would use after you've taught that. So remember, a prompt is a call to action of something that you've already taught them to do. Okay?
And the other piece about prompts is to use the same one over and over and over. Don't change the language
Right.
of it.
And that's why we print them out for you. Some people keep them posted or have them in their binder that they take with them when they do conferences. If you feel like you want more information on MSV and just a general understanding, I have a great handout. If you want to, I can send it to you. And again, either one of us would come and spend some time with you too. Or come to your PLC, whatever might work. We feel it's really that important.
So, Linda Dorn, who is a very well-known national author that actually writes for Tier 1, for classroom teachers, says that we cannot discuss teaching without examining the role of instruction. And during those literacy activities, teachers use language as a tool. It communicates the knowledge, skills, and strategies. The prompts stimulate the problem solving you want the child to engage in, and it also gives feedback for behaviors that you want them to do over and over, okay? So, when we're talking about with Common Core, how do we get kids up to higher and higher levels of proficiency? This was a look last year when we were looking at the reading standards and knowing that Standard 1 of close reading and Standard 10 of text complexity are the two most important standards out of our Common Core reading standards. So we look at kids then, if you're doing close reading of complex texts, you're trying to model and pull them up and show them the thinking of more complex texts. But what happens in between that close reading that you're doing? The volume reading. The volume reading. You know, Ellington has some scary things about volume reading would be reading continuous text. And he says, like in a primary traditional classroom, kids might read 2 to 3 minutes because much of the instruction is piecemeal. It's not continuous reading. In intermediate, like 7 to 8 minutes of continuous text reading. So we've really tried for a number of years to include that volume reading. I think a good thing to do is have a colleague of yours come in and or even for you to kind of watch one kid. And through the day, how many minutes, if you added them all up, do they have in volume reading? And then how much do they really need? Okay? So we know that volume reading is some people think volume reading is the home reading program. Volume reading happens in school as well. They need a certain amount of reading at home, a certain amount of reading in school, all because we know, research says, the more the kids read, the better that they become with it. Regie Routman, 11 years ago, was talking about the independent reading program. Any reading program that substantially increases the amount of reading students do, it will impact their achievement. It's where it provides that indispensable practice that they need to become successful, self-regulating, self-monitoring readers. So it's kind of like that bike analogy. They got to get on the bike to be able to be good at it. She says a carefully monitored independent reading program is the single most important part of your reading instructional program. So what would they be reading in an independent reading program? I mean, you use these tools to find their levels. What would they be reading? What? Just write books? Independent level? Do any of the kids in real time read frustrational levels? Okay. Okay.
And that's why, if I could just interject, Becky, when Becky started with taking you through that whole list, there lies the reason why you need to know all those levels. I mean, that's the connection about Fountas and Pinnell and knowing that range, because to bring them from their independent level to the next thing, you need to know that range of what that child knows. So.
And to help them determine, so they know that range. So, and they talk about it on the DVD that you don't want to always just go to that D box or that G box or whatever it might be. We want them to be able to kind of self-evaluate, whether it's the 5-finger test or whatever method you might do. But they need to be, oh, this is a Just Right book. This is hard. I'll have Mom read it.
Mhm. Now, this is actually something that I really, really did not know, that their reading boxes look different based on their capacity as readers. Ellington says, competent readers, they don't need the diet of independent. Because you know what? Just through that one time through with the classroom teacher, or it's at a level that, you know, it's they're able, with pretty minimal assistance, it just gives them that little bit of stretch, and they have enough strategy, they're able to read during independent time at an instructional level. Your lowest kids, though, and young kids, they need to pick up a book and say, I can read this. Oh, gosh, I can read this. You're building their self-efficacy. So for strugglers, for young children, that book box has to be highly, if not completely, at an easy level. This is critical.
For their independent reading time.
Yep.
Yes.
Their
That's the
independent reading time.
volume.
The volume on their own without you beside them. Yep.
So going back to what Ellie said, therein lies why you find the different levels of your children, because there will be different times in the day that you'll be able to, in different ways, build their cognitive development and escalate their performance. So I think I'm just going to skip these.
Yeah.
These are about high success readers, high success reading, and how they escalate kids' development. But the one slide here that I do not want to skip on your independent reading time, Kim was talking about conferences. And she's not talking about parent-teachers conferences. She's talking about conferencing with your children. And when Regie Routman talks about a monitored independent reading time, what she's talking about is going around and doing conferencing so that you can get feedback. Are they reading just right text? How is their MSV coming? You know, are they rerunning? What strategies are you going to listen for that they need, that you're going to prompt for to bring them to a higher developmental level? So this is an opportunity where you can assess on the spot what they've learned, and you can set goals with them. You know, next time, Johnny, I'm going to be really listening how you're thinking about what makes sense. You know, in your reading, and especially when he's reading the independent level, you know, or whatever. But the independent reading needs to be monitored. So you know these district expectations. Just a question on, you know, how does this fit in with goal setting? I mean, we've spent a whole hour on instructional level, independent level, on district expectations. So I know my second graders by the end of the year have to be a level M. So if Rachel is already in M in September, do I write on her goal sheet that she's going to achieve a level M? Okay, that looks like she has no goals, really, if it's just based on that. So for Rachel, you know, what would be a realistic rate of growth? What about a first grader that he's got to, by the end of the year, you know he's got to be at J, but wow, he's really, really low. In October, are you going to write, my goal for Jake is to be at a level J? Or might you say, by the end of the first trimester, I think level C might be an appropriate goal? You know, do you have to make the goals at the end of the year?
And I think those smaller frames help us as teachers to make it more manageable. I'm trying to get Johnny here in 2 months to this piece rather than thinking by the end of the year, you know, it's going to be this. And so think about that when you come up to October goal setting conferences, because you'll be asked to give a reading goal for each of your students. What makes sense? There's also the Fountas Pinnell, we gave it to you at New Teacher Workshop, that timeline by the months. I think it was at the beginning of the slides. that can help you gauge what's appropriate if you look at different grade levels, either higher or lower than your students, to pace what would be an appropriate expectation for them.
Yeah. And when we're talking goals, you know, I think of kids that are way, way above, you know, where the district wants them to be at a minimum. And I think, oh my gosh, are they a voracious reader? Are they hooked yet? I mean, not all the goals are going to be based on levels when you're working with the kids. I often think this is teacher language. This is, I mean, we do want our kids to be kind of aware of goals with leveling, but you know, this is kind of what we have in our back pocket. Okay? So, I don't know, can you read this?
You might have to read it out loud.
So this was in the paper this morning. This car says, my son is an honor student. This one says, my son made this license plate. How does that tie into what we've talked about?
Maybe they don't know. Do you know where they make license plates?
In prison. Yeah.
I didn't know because they're all really young. Maybe they didn't know that's where they make them.
So when Linda Dorn talks about the urgency of literacy, what she's saying is that if kids don't get caught up by 3rd grade, that impacts how many of them go to jail, have a shortened life expectancy, go into poverty later. It's now we know the seriousness of how what we do shapes their total life. So this is big, and I just wanted to point out that we had some conflicts with conferences, so our next date, right?
Yes.
Is going to be on a Wednesday, guided reading.
Yep. That's
And
our
workshop format. Is it going to be here?
yes. Yes, it will.
Okay. So
So remember, if you need more help, email us.
can you?
Oh, that's right. We need the exits.
3.
Oh, we're over time.
Darn
Maybe they could email the exit.
If you want to take the time to just email what was helpful today, what's something that you learned that was helpful, but what do you need? So that we can be responsive to maybe some of the individual backgrounds that you come from or don't come from.
There are no dumb questions.
Yeah, there are, and we really mean it when we say, don't sit by yourself and worry. Don't do that. Just call and get, if your team can answer the questions, that would be the first place to go, or you have reading specialists in your classroom. But if they're too busy and you still aren't getting help, you call one of us or email us. Okay?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.